All right, welcome everyone. This is producer Nick Toole.
And I'm Catherine Cole. Is that I got her accent right?
No. She's more West Coast. Go West Coast.
More West
Yeah, you
Coast.
go West Coast.
Good day. This is
No.
Catherine Cole.
No, wrong. Different West Coast, like the U.S. West
Oh,
Coast. Yeah,
U.S.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
okay.
Try again.
This is Catherine Cole. Me ho. Is that more like her?
No, that was mid. She does have some Midwest in her, but I
Oh,
don't know.
okay.
I don't know. That was like
Okay.
I don't know what that
Maybe I
was.
just do my own voice then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's probably best if I just.
I don't know if we're gonna trick anyone.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Well,
Um,
I'm Joe Ronaldo, and
Okay, so we were gonna try to pull the wool over everyone's eyes, but Catherine and Ruby are not here this week, and I brought in a friend to help me out, and I thought maybe he could be Catherine and Ruby. He promised me he was good with voices, but he's not.
I
So,
tried.
yeah.
Tried my best.
Well, this might be a weird one, folks, but this is our beer takeover. We're going to talk about all things beer and relate it back to wine.
It's going to be a nice opportunity also to maybe look at some segments of the alcohol industry that maybe don't include any alcohol, some of the fastest growing parts of the beverage world. And yeah, like Nick said, relate it back to wine, relate it back to beer, which is something that is both near and dear to our hearts.
Mm-hmm. Anchor Brewing is raised once again. Wine pain is beer pain. Hops, water, and that's it. And the hottest thing in alcohol is no alcohol. These are the four topics we're covering this week on the beer takeover of the Four Top. Filling in for Catherine this week, I'm producer Nick Toole with my friend and fellow Cicerone, Joe Ronaldo. All right, before we get into the beer news, not wine news, Joe, can you just give our listeners your bona fides?
Yeah, let's say, well, Nick Toole and I went to college together.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we know one another for a little over 15 years now. Been working in craft beer as a brewer, production manager, salesperson for a little over a decade, and now I sell malted barley to breweries for Blue Ox Malt House in Lisbon Falls, Maine.
All right.
Am I allowed to do an ad spot for the company?
No, we've got some advertisers who paid. So.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Sorry.
I see.
So up first, we are talking about kind of America's first real craft brewery, and that is Anchor Brewing.
I think it's a place that's really special to most craft beer drinkers around the United States because it was the first to really start the movement. In 1965, Fritz Maytag refounded the brand and relaunched the brand, and it's kind of, I would say, between Anchor Steam Beer and their Christmas Ale are probably two of the most ubiquitous craft beers for the last now 50-something years.
Yeah, my dad used to get us Christmas ale every year.
Absolutely. They also were fun because you could get them in magnums.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the bottles are so nice.
Yeah.
But we got bad news last year. Was it last year?
It's been happening basically for the last 5 years. It feels like every year there's worse and worse news for Anchor, but last year was the year they officially closed.
Yeah. And a lot of good folks lost jobs because of that. But we just found out in June, at the end of May, that there's going to be a new owner at the helm of Anchor Brewing who is going to be bringing back iconic beers, its staff. We're going to check in on that. And its intellectual property. And that is Hamdi Ulukaya, who you may know as the founder and CEO of Chobani and also the owner of La Colombe.
Yeah.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah. A coffee company that you can buy cans of their lattes and stuff like that in the grocery store.
Yeah, it's pretty good stuff.
Two brands that I would say are very omnipresent at every grocery store in the United States.
And known for giving back to their communities in various ways, which appears to be a chief tenet for Ulukaya as he runs his businesses. And so it seems like people are cautiously optimistic about Anchor Brewing after having been purchased. I know that oftentimes when a billionaire purchases a company, people are generally not psyched about that. But according to Eater SF, most of the staff who were in the union at Anchor Brewing intend on coming back now that he is reestablishing the brand.
And that hits on another reason that they had become an iconic brand is they were one of the first craft breweries that their full staff unionized, which is not the norm in the craft beer world. So it's nice to see that. Nice to see that they feel as though they can have representation and have it be a nice place to work.
When Anchor Brewing first went under last year, staff actually made attempts to to salvage the business, and those attempts were unfortunately unsuccessful. But it seems like this purchase by Hamdi Ulukaya and his family business are maybe the second best option for these employees, because according to the drinks business, 77% of those workers that lost their jobs last year were committed to coming back for this revived Anchor Brewing. So that's exciting.
Absolutely. And again, fingers crossed. It's a beer that was one of my first craft beers, and I would like to be able to be drinking Anchor Steam again.
Yeah, me too.
Well, Nick, Catherine, in our last episode, I painted a picture for you. A picture of the Méditerranée et je paie.
Yes, Ruby, you were the Cézanne of verbal landscapes. I was caught up in the olive trees, the lavender, the rolling hillsides, the beaches, the rushing Rhone River, and the sparkling Mediterranean Sea. In fact, I feel like singing.
Oh gosh, Catherine, we have got to get a handle on this. Nick is starting to sing in every episode. Oh my God, you're right. You're right. Okay, enough, Nick. Let's stay focused, you guys, because we have a lot more to learn about IGP Méditerranée wines.
Yes, like the music of the regions.
Actually, let's talk grapes. I don't think I even know what the grape varieties are. Well, I'm glad you asked, Ruby, because knowing that this region includes Provence and the Rhone, I think most folks in the wine industry are starting to think about GSM.
GSM? Like grape S&M? It's getting weirder and weirder on this show, I'm not gonna lie.
No, I'm talking about the triumvirate of grape varieties, Grenache, Syrah, and Mourvèdre. Not that there's anything wrong with a little, Syrah and Mourvèdre for those who are into it, but this is a safe space here at the Foretop.
Yeah, okay. GSM, I know those. My head was just elsewhere. I did know that those were kind of the key grapes of southern France.
Yeah, but this is such a rich region, and as we learned last week, it also includes Corsica. So there are all sorts of cool indigenous grape varieties that go into Méditerranée et je paie wines.
Okay, well, I'm looking at this list, and there are a lot of very tasty sounding grape varieties here. I think we should just go ahead and list them all.
How about we get back to our regularly scheduled programming, and when we come back, we'll have all those delicious grapes for you. All right, well, thanks to IGP Méditerranée for your support.
So up next for beer news, and we're going to work on a little bit of wine news here, because as we said at the top of the program, wine pain is beer pain, is alcohol pain, and the numbers bear that out. So first we turn to the National Beer Wholesalers Association, the NBWA, who...
An interesting typo that pops up since you did the NWBA is if you do the NWB, that's the National Wheelchair Basketball Association.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I've ended up on their website a bunch accidentally trying to get to the NBWA information and data.
So we're looking at data from the NBWA, their Beer Purchasers Index, and we're looking at the various beer segments for June 2023 versus June 2024. Joe, what are we looking at? Of course, this is an audio medium, so we're going to try to make this as simple to understand.
We're looking at a bar graph that compares what is a survey that is sent out to beer purchasers by the National Beer Wholesalers Association. It's a survey that they fill out, and basically it's a way that they use data to look at the health of the different industry segments for beer. So comparing sales, a score of above 50 means that that segment is growing, and a score below 50 means that that segment is shrinking, or that there is less purchasing of those beer segments. So we have the total, which they take an average of all the different segments. Then there's imports, craft, premium lights, premium regular, below premium, FMB, seltzer, which is fermented malt beverage, and seltzer, and then cider. For the purposes of this podcast, probably the closest thing that we want to look at is the craft segment, which since basically early last year has been in decline or been in retraction, according to this index. And this year in June, the numbers were particularly bad in terms of retraction. Beer purchasers do not have a lot of faith in buying craft beer right now. And really, it's one of many segments that's shrinking, with really only imports like Corona, Modelo, those types of import beers are the ones that are driving growth in the segments that you see in the positive. So yeah, this information is really useful when looking at the overall health of the industry. When I say the industry, I mean in particular where Nick and I worked together in the craft segment.
So if you look at the index, as Joe described, If the index number for a segment is above 50, that means that volumes in that segment are expanding. And if it's below 50, it means there's some contraction. Kraft had an index of 38 last year, so not good, and has an index of 27 this year in June 2024. Even worse.
Kraft is actually looking at all of these segments. Kraft is actually the most contracting segment out of all of these. Cider is even doing better than Kraft is.
Imports, on the other hand, are looking pretty great. 68 last year, 70 this year. So they are growing faster than they did last year, at this point in the year.
And when you're looking at that and you're thinking imports, I think a lot of craft beer nerds think about, oh, an import means like a German beer or a Belgian beer or something similar to that. But when we're talking imports here, we're talking about mass-produced imports like Modelo or Corona. So beers that you see basically in every liquor store, convenience store, restaurant, ballpark across the country.
It is funny to see kind of anecdotally how these things change, because when I moved to Portland after college, everyone was going for Narragansett as the cheap beer. And then at some point it turned to Miller High Life. And that still has a lot of prominence. But in the past, I would say 18 months, Modelo has been the go-to like cheap beer when I go out with my friends.
Absolutely. I mean, that's almost entirely driven by price point and excellent marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. Throw a lime on there. People love it.
Oh, yeah.
Love it. So beer is experiencing some contraction in the craft space, but some growth in imports and total growth overall right now. So we're seeing pain, but we're seeing pain in different places. Of course, craft beer contracting. Yikes, especially for a lot of our friends in the industry. So we're turning to wine now, and we're looking at data from IWSR, which is a global drinks business data firm. And so the overall picture of the US wine market specifically is that volumes are going to decline, they predict, at a compound annual growth rate of -2% between 2022 and 2027. That is an acceleration of recent declines. But that isn't the whole story. And in a way, it's kind of the flip story of beer. Because if you look a little bit beyond the headline of declines in wine, you'll find that the IWSR is predicting volume declines for lower priced, value brands, whereas we're looking at some gains for premium and above products. So whereas in beer, those imports, which tend to be lower priced imports like Modelo or Corona, those are driving growth right now. You might see almost the flip in wine, growth in that premium market and declines in the lower priced or accessible brands.
Well, and for me personally, I think that matches up. I don't drink a lot of wine, but when I do, I am tending to buy wine that is a little more specialized, is a little more interesting. And I usually am paying not crazy amounts of money, but I'm paying around $20 rather than like a $10 bottle or like a $2 chuck situation. I'm spending 20 to 25 and getting very nice, tasty wine at some of the local places here in Portland.
Now, that actually brings me to the next point. Joe, are you a millennial?
I am a millennial born in 91.
So you'll find that some people, according to the IWSR, believe that millennials are the, quote, most involved age group in the wine category. So millennials are seeing an improved financial outlook after, not seeing that for a long time, as we can all tell you. And they're willing to spend more money. And as you just noted, that's true for you. It's true for myself. And so millennials are a big driving force for the industry right now, which is great because baby boomers were really what drove growth historically. And they're aging out of the market, to put it in a less morose way.
They're aging out of the market. And I think, I don't want to say that it's a good thing, but it's the type of thing that they were also brought up in a time and were educated on what products they could buy when there was less diversity in the market and less things available. So now we have this wonderful world of wine and beer and spirits, being on the craft level, being on the artisanal level, even out to cheese and other food products. We can get these nice local things that maybe are more expensive, but maybe the way that we value them in terms of like our personal finances and budgets is we value them higher. We don't eat them all the time. We don't drink them all the time, but we get to enjoy them when it's a special occasion. And maybe that has more resonance, even though it's maybe not going to drive overall market growth.
Yeah, so just kind of sum things up, looking at that IWSR data and the NBWA data, we're seeing not opposite stories, but an interesting difference in stories in the pain that we're seeing in the markets. There are predictions that premium wine will see growth And
Below premium wine, we'll see shrinkage.
and then in beer, we're seeing craft beer continuing to take a hit. And we have seen that, close to home. Whereas,
Macro beer, we'll say, so Modelo, Corona, other imports like that have seen enormous amounts of growth over the last couple of years.
yeah, and I guess we didn't specifically mention it, but premium lights and premium regulars segments in the beer industry, they're seeing growth.
Nick, that seems like it's a perfect segue into, what is sort of the topic for today. Why is alcohol consumption declining overall? What I'm hearing from both of these different segments, wine and beer, is that overall consumption is down. Why? And I think our third story is one of the many reasons as to why.
Or it's a chicken and the egg.
That's true.
Is it why, or is it a response to? So yeah, we are talking about hop water. Now, Joe, can you get us with the sound effects here?
Oh, yeah. Here, I'm going to open one of these.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we're drinking hop water. We are specifically drinking Allagash Brewing Company's new hop water, which actually dropped on July 4th. So this stuff is fresh.
Nick, can you read the ingredients for us?
What do we got for ingredients on this one? This is not a sponsorship, by the way. We are just interested. Carbonated water, hops, orange peel, coriander, and citric acid.
I would say that's pretty standard for most of the hop waters that I've drank and seen and heard about people making. It has become a very trendy thing, both locally here in Portland, Maine, for breweries to make as a non-alcoholic option, but nationwide, there are lots and lots and lots of breweries making hop water.
Yeah, and this one, I think folks would be interested to know what hops are in hop water. It varies, obviously. Allagash's initial offering is crystal and citra hops. So this actually shares a lot of the ingredients with Allagash White, Allagash's flagship brand, but it's not spot on. Aside from not having alcohol or malt, some of these ingredients also differ. I don't believe there are citra hops in Allagash White, but yeah, it's very tasty.
Yeah, refreshing, fruity.
Now it's starting to sound like an ad. This
Yeah.
is not an ad.
Allagash hop water, 0 alcohol, 0 carbs.
So we wanted to talk about hop water because hop water is a growing segment, and it's also a representation of the fact that a lot of people are turning towards non-alcoholic, alcohol-adjacent products to satisfy their thirst because plain old water is boring, I guess.
Yeah, I think I do laugh about it sometimes that people, aren't just drinking straight up water. But when I go to a party or go to a friend's house and I'm like, I don't really want to drink tonight, having a drink in your hand that isn't just a plain old glass of water does make you feel like you're a part of that party more. And it provides a little more context to hanging out with friends or going to the beach or going to a ball game.
Yeah, and we're going to get into actual non-alcoholic products, but I am not personally a big fan of NA beer and NA wine. I think that it is too much an approximation of something without actually being quite as good as the actual thing. In my own opinion, that is my own read on it. Obviously, tastes for different people. So I'd actually rather have a product like a hop water because it's not pretending to be alcohol. It's just alcohol kind of adjacent. But we were looking for some data on the growth of hop water. It was a little bit tough to find recent numbers, but we did find some Nielsen data that ended in December of 2023. And this is coming to us from Beer Crunchers, the Substack by Doug Vilicki. I hope I pronounced that correctly, who published this on December 21st, 2023. So what do we got here, Joe?
Well, the hop water category is seeing growth of over 140% in the last 52 weeks. So from 2022 throughout the entirety of 2023, 143% growth. Even in the month of December of 2023, 72% growth based on the Nielsen data, that's a lot. That's a lot of growth. For a food or beverage segment of any kind, seeing that amount of growth is pretty astonishing because all of this is coming from, breweries and suppliers that it does take time to make. They have to make sure that it's in a production schedule. They have to make sure that there's physical space to produce this stuff, and suddenly they're able to do it that quick. It's really surprising.
Yeah, and I appreciate this Beer Crunchers piece using this Nielsen data because it looks at specific brands. So Lagunitas has their sparkling hop water, as they call it, Hoppy Refresher. And in that same time period we already mentioned, basically almost all of 2023, they saw 70% growth
So while seeing the trend in hop water, where hop water is exploding and lots of breweries are making it, the non-alcoholic segment, whether it's non-alcoholic beer, whether it's a mocktail type beverage, non-alcoholic wine, overall is having a huge amount of growth.
Okay, we are back in the world of,
Méditerranée et je paie.
and let's hear about those grapes.
Well, we don't have time to list 100 grape varieties, Nick, and I think people will stop listening after about 20. Well, I have an idea. I still have Cece, my daughter, here, and her French is better than mine. So, how about we stumble through some of these grape varieties just for our own edification? And Cece, you can hop in and help us when we need some French. So, let's start with kind of the well known red grape varieties of the region. Ruby? Cabernet Sauvignon,
I've got Carignan,
Sansol, Grenache, Marsanne,
Merlot.
Mourvèdre, Pinot Noir, and Syrah.
Okay, so now we've got some well-known white grape varieties. Go.
Chardonnay, Grenache Blanc, Muscat à petit grain, Rolle, which is also known as Vermentino, Roussin,
Sauvignon Blanc.
Viognier,
Okay, and cool other varieties that I have never heard of before.
Cadaloc, Chassin, Chatus, Colombard, Marcelin, Muscat de Hambourg. Well, I've said it before and I'll say it again. My daughter is far more accomplished than I will ever be, and she's only 19. But hey guys, one cool thing about Méditerranée et je paie wine labels, unlike with so many other French wines from regions where it's really just the regional name on the label, what's great about these wines is often the grape variety is listed. So it makes these wines really accessible to consumers, and it's just so much fun to learn about these different grape varieties. Absolutely. There's so much more than GSM.
Yes, there's C, G, M, P, S, V, M, C, M, and more.
And thank you to Rosé Méditerranée IGP for sponsoring the Foretop.
So if you're looking at just non-alcoholic beer, spending on non-alcoholic beer through June of 2024 hit $4.3 billion for purchases off-premise and $2.9 billion for purchases on-premise. That's just through June.
Yes, and just so that everybody is aware, when you're looking at purchasing data and it says off premise, it means you took it home with you.
Right.
On premise is sitting at a bar or restaurant.
Right. And to kind of put those numbers into context, 1.1 billion liters of NA beer are projected to be consumed in the US in 2024. That's 2.59 liters per person.
Which is a crazy thing to think, but honestly, the power of marketing and the health and wellness trend of the younger generation has bled into the older generations too. So people are more interested than ever in testing out sobriety. And interestingly, a lot of that NA beer consumption is actually happening via beer drinkers. So people not necessarily replacing all of their drinking with NA beers, but replacing enough that there's actually some parallel growth happening. So NA beer is growing with some of the other beer categories. So like someone who drinks Modelo might actually be mixing in an NA beer from like a Heineken or one of the larger brands, Bud Zero, something like that, that they're mixing in with what they're normally consuming for alcohol.
So according to the BA with data from Arrived, which is that point of sale system company, and this is, we get our numbers via Washington Beer Blog. So thank you, Washington Beer Blog. NA beer sales at breweries have tripled recently. On-premise tasting room sales at breweries, which is interesting, especially because a lot of craft breweries don't actually have their own non-alcoholic offering. They may have a third-party non-alcoholic offering, or we're seeing breweries are adding their own non-alcoholic offerings.
And that, interestingly, has something to do with the scalability of the equipment involved with making non-alcoholic beer as well. Previously, it was something that only the largest breweries could do. And now there is filtration equipment that is small enough and cost effective enough for some breweries that want to put in the infrastructure surrounding it.
So looking at IWSR data from May of this year, non-alcoholic beer and cider account for 81% of servings in the non-alcoholic overall category. And that category rose in volume terms by 30%. And then wine comes in at 18%. And then you've got the spirits and ready to drink cocktails and things like that coming in behind that. But they're each up 30-something%. So that's pretty incredible growth for this segment of the alcohol industry.
Yeah, and looking at the next 5 years, there's some places that are predicting that non-alcoholic beverages could make up 4% of the alcoholic beverage market, which is a really funny, strange sentence to say. We're turning this into the numbers episode, Nick.
Yeah, I didn't mean to get so numbersy on it, but when I was looking into what we wanted to discuss, which was, the growth of beer and wine segments that have not traditionally been very big, it came out to a lot of numbers. Also, folks, I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of a data analytics master's program, so I'm all about the numbers. I hope this wasn't terribly dry.
Is this when you play the jazz music in between things? There's like the do for like a couple seconds, and then it goes into the dessert course. So is that when there's the strings?
See, the strings aren't live, folks. You're learning right now. The strings are not actually live.
You don't have a string quartet?
No.
And everywhere it goes.
We had booked a guy
who can play a violin, viola, and cello at the same time.
Yeah,
right?
It was like a one-man band type thing.
Pretty cool.
It did not work out. He was pretty expensive.
Okay.
So he just recorded the one little bit, and then we just played that.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, usually we say something like, it's time for the dessert course. And Joe, I heard that you have a dessert course for us this week.
I actually have 2 pieces of dessert for this course.
I'm full, but thank you.
Okay. I will have 2 desserts then for myself. A big congratulations to the Four Top podcast for being a finalist in the audio category for the 67 Pall Mall Global Wine Communicator Awards. That's pretty special, and I feel honored that I'm on an award-nominated podcast.
Well, you're also on an award-winning podcast.
Oh, okay.
It has won a James Beard Award and an IAs.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I mean...
Before my time, I'll admit. But
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, there's an award show in London. I'm going to see if I can sneak my way across the pond. And
Pretty jealous. It sounds great.
Yeah.
My second dessert it's actually a salad course, which is a happy birthday.
Maybe I do have room.
A happy birthday, 100th birthday, I believe, to Caesar salad, which turned 100 on July 4th.
Oh, really?
Of this year, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
The Caesar salad.
The Caesar salad, the original.
Oh, man.
My favorite salad.
I absolutely love the Caesar salad. I
It's
think that's
so
probably my
It's
favorite.
It's pretty hard to beat like a really nicely made Caesar salad.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing with us, Joe. I appreciate it. Can you help me sign out the podcast?
Absolutely.
All right. This has been the Four Top Podcast. I'm your producer, Nick Toole.
And I'm your executive producer, Catherine Cole.
That's
Was
exactly
that her? Did I get her accent right on that one?
Absolutely nailed
Oh,
it.
perfect. Awesome. I felt good.
Keelan King is the composer and performer of our wonderful theme music. Thank you, Keelan. Please visit our website, thefourtop.org, to learn more about us and listen to back episodes.
If you have not already subscribed to the Four Top on iTunes or Spotify, please do so. And please give us a rating.
Please, y'all, this is important. Every rating feeds the algorithm and helps new listeners find the Four Top.
From an apartment high atop one of the many skyscrapers on Munjoy Hill in Portland, Maine, it has been a true pleasure, Nick Toole. Thank you very much. I am Joe Ronaldo.
And fresh off the ferry from Peaks Island, where I did a bit of sunbathing before recording this episode, this is Nick Toole. Stay safe out there, and thanks for listening.